Hello and welcome. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and today I'm going to be in what promises to be a fascinating conversation on the whole concept of movies, technology, and creativity, and moving beyond the concept of entertainment. Because as we know it, filmmaking has changed over the years, from the way it is produced as well as the way the public has enjoyed it. From the early day projections to modern day computer generated graphics, innovation has been the mainstay of the movie and the entertainment industry. Be it animation, graphics, green screen simulations, technological advances have played a pivotal role in movies and stories that we would love to watch. And to talk to me about all of this and what the entire ecosystem holds for 2022 and beyond, I've got a very, very eminent uh, person from within industry who perhaps symbolizes the whole concept of eminence. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Biren Ghose, who's been the country head for Technicolour India for over 12 years. Biren is also the vice chairman for the CII National Committee for Media and Entertainment 2021 and 22. He's also the president of ABAI, the Bangalore-based AVGC association that works on education and infrastructure for the creative industries. And he is the chief mentor for the Software Technology Parks of India for two of their centers of excellence for animation and for augmented reality and virtual reality. He served on the management committees of NASSCOM, FICCI, and other trade bodies for over 2 years. Biren personally is a multifaceted person and has a passion for art, music, Formula One, tennis, photography, wines, and spirits. Without further ado, Biren, welcome. Privileged and delighted that you can join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Biren, we have the next 30, 35 minutes, and I intend to put them into judicious use. And I must start off with your vast experience. How has the digital world changed technologies in filmmaking? Has it democratized, in a sense of the word, content creation?
Arjun, thank you very much for the invitation to have this fireside chat. Plenty of fires burning. We could be sitting against alongside any one of them. I'd like to just start by saying two or three things just as a kind of an introduction. First of all, as always, you've run the risk of inviting me to be bold and controversial and to help us think of the future. And I do believe that what people say creates reality. We've seen it in our industry for many years. And in entertainment, this is absolutely true. The media industry has prepared us, those of us who work in it, for this pandemic, because our industry is an endemic disruptor in itself. So I think that there's no better.
That couldn't be better put. I agree.
The second thing I'd like to say is that media is no longer the purview of people in entertainment, because every one of us in any industry, and you have a vast panoply of topics in this session, in these sessions you're conducting, everyone there is a storyteller, right? Whether it was a government leader that you had yesterday, whether it is the CEOs you have coming on board, whether they are educators, whether they are in health care. Now everything is no longer health tech and education. It's ed tech and health tech and fintech and everything tech. And the tech part of that story is media. The third thing I'd like to say is that this talk today is much more the voice of Biren as an individual, as an industry participant, as an evangelist for this country and this industry, and as someone who deeply believes that, I truly believe that the media and entertainment industry is the most powerful driver, or could be the most powerful driver for socio-economic development, because our mental and physical health is influenced and affected and changed for the better by the jobs we create and by the hearts and the minds that we will reach. So I'd just like to start with those comments. And
absolutely brilliantly and supremely articulated, Biren. I couldn't agree more.
So I'd like to start, because you use the word democratized, but I will start with how filmmaking and digital has changed filmmaking. And first of all, Arjun, we should not, publicly reveal our age by using words like film and movies and stuff, because the younger people on this panel, they know what we are talking about as content. And it may surprise many people who are not from this industry in this audience to know that right from when I came in very recently in the year 1999 into this industry, after having been in other industries, movies in India have generally not been more than 10% of the total media and entertainment revenues. And therefore, while film is close to our hearts, and we love all our filmmakers and the wonderful big picture story that we take worldwide, it is really many other facets of content creation. What you're doing today is content creation, what people do in the news and what people do at events and what people do in broadcasting, which really catapulted the size and scope of this business and continues to do so with the advent of OTT. So I'd like to just say that when I talk about what has changed in the digital world, it is exactly this ability to create content in so many different flavors. We make Baskin Robbins look very restricted in what they offer compared to what in the number of channels, the genres, the disciplines, the platforms, and so on and so forth. And so I think what you are trying to ask me about is the ubiquity of content.
Indeed.
That it is now, we talked for several years about how we could do the anywhere, anytime, any device, any place. We talked about this for a long time. Convergence was a big word, right? And if you go back about 20 years, and it's happened, it's in the past now.
Yeah, it is.
That is where we have been able to see, for example, that today, if you look at, if you go back, just 3 or 4 or 5 years, the difference between what the box office commanded worldwide and the difference between what was the revenues from on demand was a differential of 25 to 30 billion dollars. Box office was more. If you look at, whether we take the year before the pandemic started or if you take this year or next year, the on demand is greater than the box office globally by $20 billion. So the swing in this period has been like a $40 billion swing.
True.
Okay. That says the story. That is the reality. That dashboard tells you that people are now beginning to create content for an on-demand world. And that is what has changed it. Now, I would also say that there's a very important part of this advantage that Asia or India has, because we always follow the world when it comes to infrastructure. And like we leapfrogged directly into the laptop age, without we are also, Asia is becoming a very dominant consumer base for the on-demand world because of our sheer size and population, right? And therefore, if you take what I call the Flixes are the Netflix and the Disney Plus and the Prime and Apple Plus and so on and so forth. All of these are showing us that we have now entered an age of the super aggregator. And the super aggregator, like you see in the technology world, you talk about all the SaaS platform type of stories.
Indeed.
Effectively, we have entered the age of platforms in digital media, right? And so there's a chance for many people. Don't forget what YouTube did for content creation.
Right, exactly.
Channel, other people, and most people did, right? People who are eminent faces on public television here who had to be on a channel before, all today have their own channels.
Own channels.
On demand, right? And so that is really what has happened. We are in the age of the super aggregators, and that has changed filmmaking, because I could be making a film that is just on an NGO platform, right? Yesterday, I saw a fantastic news channel presenting how the marginalized communities, right, the SC and the ST, have now got 5 or 6 channels that they talked about in that interview, one of them having 925 million subscribers. This is Dalits who are trying to create a voice for themselves. That is what has happened to storytelling.
Mr. Biren, then it's a question that just came to my mind. You spoke about the $40 billion shift, one way or the other. Am I reading this correctly to be able to say that, look, the on-demand, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the TikToks of the world, and so on and so forth, have gained at the expense of the traditional or the classical box office being stymied by the pandemic, and of course, folks not being able to visit theaters and so on and so forth. Once things return to a modicum of normalcy, or come back to fairly being normal, because we need to learn to live with COVID. It's never perhaps going to go away. In that sense, do you think both of them will be able to coexist and drive incremental revenues at both ends?
I must give you a factoid that actually answers this question. While live action shooting came to an absolute stop in different parts of the world at different times because the pandemic hit at different levels, the total drop in the revenues of the global media and entertainment story did not drop by more than 5%.
Oh, wow.
And in the case of India, I won't go into giving you a whole, breakdown of it. But what happened with OTT and in particular with online games completely offset what happened with the live action. It did make a big difference in India because television is largely live action.
Yes.
So yes, the India story had a bigger dip, but globally the dip was only about 5%. And if the global revenue pre-pandemic was $2.1 trillion, this last year was back to $2.2 trillion.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, and if you look at the trailing 5-year CAGR, when it was looking like it was going to go down to 2 and 3%, it is back to about 4% globally. In India, our growth rate is, just kind of remaining at the double-digit mark of 11 to 12%, driven largely by OTT again, by games again, and so on. So I just wanted to respond to that by saying that the big ticket items in media, driven by sports and by what happens in different formats of television, and driven by what happens on demand. Don't forget, I'm talking mostly revenues.
True.
So it's even better than revenues because most of the other forms of content which are democratized don't necessarily have high revenues.
True that.
There are about, I'm guessing 100,000 really, really amazing influencers in India whose revenues we cannot track in a formal sense.
True that. No, absolutely.
And they really represent today's storytelling that was formerly called advertising or promoting, whatever you want to call it, right? So
no, absolutely true. I couldn't agree more. And going forward, Biren, at Technicolour, as the country head for Technicolour, you've been at the forefront of cutting-edge technology to create the narratives, the stories that we have fallen in love with, that we've been captivated with, that we have laughed along with, that we've cried with. How has that journey been? And if you could reflect on the journey of how the evolution of technology has helped create such brilliant moments for all of us, how has the journey been?
So, Technicolour is one of those, today when you look at a campaign for computers, you hear about something called Intel Inside.
Indeed.
I would say Technicolour has been the wind in the sails.
True that.
It's been Technicolour inside. It's been creating what I would say is the empowerment of the creative professional by inventing tools and technologies that move the industry forward. We brought color to the screen, and that's been a 106-year journey. Let me tell you that I normally quip about where I work, and this is purely my definition. I say that I work for a 106-year-old startup.
So true.
This company around 13 and a half years ago, in what was a relatively small studio in Bangalore. Now it has 6,000 people in it and growing. And 50%, and I'm just making this as an approximation, of the services that we offered when I joined the company no longer exist.
Wow.
We used to have color film labs around the world. We were the foremost creators of that. That doesn't exist. We used to have a number of media services that, repurposed content and created different forms of compression and authoring and many, many things of that sort. And those don't exist within the company because, we've now moved to what I would call the newer tech that we to drive. And we see that with animation and the visual effects powering everything in content, and with games that we've been a part of, we've done the FIFA game for Electronic Arts now for the last 12 years, 13 years that I've been here, and other forms of content. People may not know this, but effectively we work on something close to 1,000 short form pieces of content for the world's brands, right? So while you see us hopefully at the Academy with our fingers crossed waiting for a visual effects Oscar or animated Oscar, we're also sitting with the fingers crossed at the Cannes for advertising, because that's where we get those and so I think what's unique about us is that we've always figured out how to make storytelling bigger, bolder, and better, and be the wind in the sails for people that will always want to come back and do the next thing.
Indeed.
I know in the last 10 or 12 movies that Sir Ridley Scott made, I mean, he would come back, we've kind of partnered him on all of that journey. That's just one example of the 5, 10, 15 major projects that we take up across that genre of our business every year. So to answer your question, I think it is both riding the wave and creating the wave.
True that.
I think if I was to see, like in the 13 years I've been here, we've created some amazing, amazing projects in fully animated television series. So if we were doing the Penguins of Madagascar in the year that I came in, it was SD, right? The 480p story at that time. And by the time we came to the next season, a year and a half later, it was HD, 720, and then 1080. And then it went to 1K, and then 2K, stereoscopic, and then 4K. And, the Beijing 2022 was looking to be transmitted in 8K, right?
Oh.
So the point is that nothing stays still.
True.
The number of pixels on the screen today, even if there are people today who are working in our company who it's not just you and I, it's people, even all of the service staff, all of people in housekeeping, all of people in security. They're looking at pixels. Which phone should I buy that will give me more pixels? Because so this pixel logic, as I call it, is now become such a commodity that it makes people who create, manage, and deliver content up their game all the time. And what we do in the company is to be able to go beyond, because if we were the inventors of the 3-step color process when we went back 106 years, today we have to figure out ways by which we empower not only things that happen in front of the camera, but inside and behind the camera.
True.
So it's the virtualization of what was formerly known as a camera, if you know that.
Yeah, absolutely, because and you brought out a very particularly specific point that I'm very keen to understand, which is that if you hark back to the days of when technology astounded us in the whole concept of watching and viewing and consuming content, and for this particular segment question, I will stick to the large movie format. Terminator 2, Judgment Day was one that blew us away, and then came Independence Day, and then came the Matrix trilogy. And then came significantly more evolution in what could truly blow us away. Avengers Endgame being one of them, and so many others, animated movies, and so on and so forth. In that sense, Biren, how do you see the evolution of technology? Because you spoke about, we've spoken CGI, we've spoken 3D, 4K, now you're saying 8K. What does it entail for content creation in the years to come ahead with the evolution of technology? What can viewers expect to consume? I mean, where do you think this is going?
So, creators, all creators, right? Not necessarily entertainment, anyone that's involved in the creative process are just minds that are having fun. They're just playing. And most of these ideas come from a playful disposition. Allowing, be it trying to solve a cure for the coronavirus.
True.
Yeah, it's the guy who ran out of the bathtub shouting "Eureka!" Remember that?
Eureka, absolutely.
But he was just having a bath, right, at that point of time.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I think the big tentpole ideas are big. With every stage of evolution, the creator is forced to have a bigger idea, and that bigger idea needs bigger tech. And I think, therefore, whether it's a Sir Ridley Scott in the West or it's a Shankar creating a great Tamil movie in South India, the demand that they have is to help them enlarge the canvas.
True.
Paint it bigger and bigger. Just as a lark, we won. The visual effects Oscar was given to 1917, which is a phenomenal World War I battle movie.
Oh, That's
where
lovely.
the creator just wanted to make sure that the whole movie is one sequence. So we had to stitch everything together, mostly done by a phenomenal team, both of us, substantially in Bangalore, right? And when you do that, then you go somewhere else. When one of our when the mill went and helped to create the launch film, around what we were doing for metaverse, right? For the launch, the idea is then to create a 360-degree canvas, right? That's what we're doing. You just make sure that what was the four boundaries of this envelope. Both of us are right now in a box that is a rectangle.
True.
When we create CGI, it is a little bit like the picture behind me. It doesn't have an end. It like continues. You can keep stitching it.
It is a continuum of sorts.
When we created the entire movie with Jon Favreau for Walt Disney, The Lion King, which came out 4 years ago, for which again we won every award in the book, we had to create terrain that was about 150 square kilometers.
Wow.
So what we created virtually is the size of Bangladesh or Greece or
Wow.
South Korea, right? So that is the canvas that I'm talking about.
It's truly limitless in a manner of speaking, isn't it?
It is limitless. It is limited by the budget.
Of course.
But yes, in theory, it is limitless. And today, I would just say that what is happening is that the technologies that, for example, we have been using for many years on the creation of games. We worked on, Grand Theft Auto 5 and on the Call of Duty and many games with Ubisoft.
That's my favorite.
And so that company yesterday bought Zynga, right? So this is a big story. The game story is a topic for another conversation.
True.
Just coming back to what I was trying to say, because of the pandemic and the inability for us to have hundreds of people in a closed room in what was formerly called a studio, okay, Mehboob studio or any studio.
Indeed.
That is today going to take place using game engine technology, which is why Epic's games, Unreal Engine and the Unity engine and so on and so forth will allow you to shoot the next version. So if there was an Agent Vinod made in 5 countries because you wanted to have a James Bond-like character coming out of an Indian comic book, we can now do Monte Carlo and Moscow and whatever just there virtually.
Wow.
And we in Bangalore here with the support of the Bangalore government at ABI, which is the association you talked about, we've already put in a 30 crore facility that has motion capture, that has photogrammetry. So I can create, if you came and stood in between a dome that we've created with 200 Canon cameras, and we had this Canon in India, the wonderful Japanese gentleman who should have seen everything came there and has never seen Canon cameras in that fashion, where in the blink of an eye, with one click, we can actually create Arjun Vishwanathan.
Wow.
Yeah. And that becomes the 48 slices of you that can become the digital human, that you can now say that for next year's strategic conversation, you know what, I'm a little bit busy because I'm going off to the swimming pool. So can you please use my digital double? And that double would have that conversation with me, but not really with me because I will be with you in the pool. So then my double will be here talking to you as well. So if I can tell you what CGI can do, that's what it's already doing.
So true. By that measure, Biren, then what does 2022 promise? What's going to trend? And how do you see India playing a more pivoted, more critical role in the global entertainment space?
So let's understand, that the Indian industry has never been really organized in the way that other industries are. It's the myth of creators can't have governance. Creators can't have governance. That has changed in the last 10 years. It has changed, but it's changed. It took around 30, 40 years to change. I think some time in that process, because we were star driven, we were content driven, we were driven by the pure excitement of creating a project.
True.
And notwithstanding, we are about 1% of the world market, which is a bit surprising, because if you're the largest creators by number of movies, and that is only 10% of our revenue. And don't forget that piracy did hold us back for a while, right? I mean, until the digital came, I think that the digital's biggest gift to content creators is the ability that you can monetize something and track it, right? There's an Aadhaar and a KYC and a payment that you have to make, or you are doing something illegal, which you can be.
Of course.
So we are a $24 billion industry in India in 2021. And if we grow at the rate we are growing, we will be a $1 trillion industry in 2030. But we would absolutely not be able to, we would not have been achieving the potential, because there are 3 or 4 areas that require a little bit of a support, a hand on the back, if I may call it that. And those are, amongst others, OTT, the whole streaming story, which itself, is now in discussion as to how should it be regulated, how should it, so on and so forth. So the OTT space, the game space is a much misunderstood space, because there are almost 6, 7, 8 different types of games. 5 states have, at any point of time, have banned some of the real money games, and therefore the revenue can't come in. And then the local courts and the Supreme Courts throw that out. So I think what happens is, when things are new, the misunderstanding, this media is a very difficult thing to understand. And I think educators and industry and government and regulators and public at large must all come together and try and put sense and sensibility into it, because this slows us down.
It does.
And so the big players today who are even unicorns in this space, right? We have 2 unicorns in the gaming space, at least when I last counted. It may be that this morning there was one that I don't know. And these gentlemen will now be taking their business to North America and to Indonesia and to Korea and so on and so forth, because in their own country, there isn't a very clear path for them to drive this fast car.
So true.
Important, right? So OTT or streaming media, games, we are going to see a huge revolution in sports. Sports drives media in a big way. Some of the largest number of zeros written on a check are those that are written when people bid for IPL rights and cricket, on and so forth. That's the single biggest ticket story there is.
Oh, absolutely.
And you have some large local players entering that game as well, and of course the usual suspects will be there. So it's all very good. But I think esports, which has just started, in the last few years, creating a whole parallel universe. And if you look at Japan or North or South Korea, I mean, these are country propositions. There are country playbooks for how esports is going to pan out. And we're at the beginning of that, and there's a lot of local excitement in that area. And for a sport-loving nation like us, I see that. So if we take all of these, there's no reason for us to continue the same growth rate as before.
So true.
The other point I'd like to make to you is that when it comes to digital media like animation and visual effects and so on, these are very, very expensive ways of creating content. They cost a lot more than shooting with a camera. And therefore, we need now to deploy them where there is the biggest advantage for India. And it may surprise you to know that 75% of all the revenues that come in that sector usually come from exports.
True.
Maybe more than 75. And that today is only $1 billion out of our 24. So if we were given some impetus, like other countries, they put up, large pavilions for content creators from this country or production houses from this country to go there and market themselves, that can grow 10 times.
10 times. Biren, it also brings me to a very interesting question, and one that I'm personally very curious about is, you're at the center of cutting-edge technology and building innovation in media and entertainment. How do you foster a sense of innovative culture within your own organization at Technicolour on a day-to-day basis?
There are many people who do that, right? I'm one of the hundreds of managers that drive the most creative bunch of folks and the most talented bunch of folks, everywhere in the world. We are in 4 or 5 in every single continent, and India very much is a kind of a hub for all of them.
Indeed.
So I would just say that it is glamorous from the outside, but painstaking from the
On
inside.
the inside.
You may not know this, but for every single frame that we work with effects or an animation, there are almost 14 different processes that go into every single frame.
Wow.
So when you say animation in an animated movie, animation is one of those processes.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Okay.
That's
And some of these processes, to make it simple, are akin to sculpting, some are akin to painting, some are into mathematics and anatomy coming together, some are akin to using computing power in an interesting way, some are the play of lights.
so true.
You know, what I'm really disappointed at my image today is that it has really poor lighting. My glasses are reflecting, and you know, my head occasionally does this. The rotor doesn't work because I do this, then you can see the top of my head going up. So you see, the point is that imagery, when it's done in the pixel perfect manner in which we do it, requires a lot of support. It requires technical support. It requires software. The software changes annually. The computers, the hardware of 2021 or the software of 2022,
21.
the software that we now will license in 2020, the same software that we've been using for the last, say, 20 years or 10 years. The software we will license in 2022 will not work on a machine that's older than 3 years. Okay. And I did tell you earlier that we have between 5,500 to 6,000 people who are working on this.
Of course.
So this industry has these multiple skill sets, all of which we need to foster and harness and grow. And we need people who can continuously upscale them in each of these disciplines: modelers, you know, texturers, people who work on the render, people who work on lighting, people who work on the rigs, people who work on these are because when you create a model of Arjun, and then 100 people or 200 people have to use this in the animation, your smile has to stop here, your cheek can't go up more than this. So the way that we give them the asset for which they will create animation or visual effects,
Wow,
it has to be where you know it. You talked of many movies earlier, which is what everyone talks about. But those are not the movies that are the best descriptors of who we are and what we do. The movies that are the best descriptors of who we are, what we do, is where you cannot recognize what is animation and visual effects.
wow. I have a couple of names, particularly.
So, for example, when we worked together with a studio that no longer exists, and worked and got the Oscar for The Life of Pi.
Oh.
Remember that the sinking of the ship and the two storm scenes and all the water there and all the stuff that you saw, none of it was real.
Real. Wow.
So how do you create a storm scene and make people not focus on the fact, and whether it was a Harry Potter or whether it is Pirates of the Caribbean or whether it's Life of Pi, all the water that we do is simulated. It's exactly like real life. Because we've actually created, I'm sure, tanks in the past and dropped a log or a canoe on top and agitated the water at different speeds and understood the physicality of water, and then made sure that we use that exactly, which is why I'm saying that it is a technology-driven creative process.
Wow.
The talent that we do with those tools and with those technologies, right? We have a technology for destruction. We call it Kali appropriately. So when Godzilla hits a building when Godzilla goes and swipes at buildings in Manhattan, they crumble in the exact manner. So, but you're not thinking of that. You're looking at the movie Godzilla. You should, but if it did not crumble in a way that seems real, then you would not appreciate it as much as you do.
I wouldn't. So that is so absolutely true.
So we want to be, outstanding in being invisible.
So true. Virendra, this is increasingly turning out to be a supremely fascinating conversation. But I do have a view on the clock. I know you've got a hard schedule ahead, but I'm still greedy. Virendra, considering we are on the topic of movies, in conclusion, if I were to ask you two movies that have endeared themselves to you in time across international, Indian, vernacular, which ones would they be? Your two most favorite movies of all time, perhaps?
I would like to answer this, from the point of view of I'm biased because I know what goes into these different. So we've
Indeed.
done 2 Harry Potters, we've done the James Bonds, we've done the Pirates of the Caribbean, we've done, all the Aliens, Covenant, and so on and stuff. I also equally love the stuff we do in games.
Yeah.
Because it's very immersive, right? You put up, the human mind is so fickle.
True.
If I was to give you a VR headset, and that headset is going to make you walk across over a street with 2 buildings in Manhattan, but you're on the 50th floor. And you can tell yourself 100 times that you're just walking in your own drawing room. And you tell yourself 100 times that I'm going to tell myself every second, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. But once you put that on and you have the wind and the birds flying, and
oh, wow,
your mind cannot suspend belief for more than 3, 5, 7 seconds. If you're really strong-minded, maybe in another 2 seconds.
so true.
So my point is that when you're talking of movies, because of what went into the game-changing nature of The Lion King, you may not know this, but The Lion King was conceived completely end-to-end and completed as a movie in its pre-visualization stage entirely within VR headsets.
Wow.
Our visual effects supervisor and Disney's VFX supervisor, Rob Legato, really amazing guy. And of course, Jon Favreau, the director. And that's the technology that they've taken forward. That's how The Mandalorian has been made by some of those people with Weta, since then. And it's now becoming more ubiquitous. But the fact that we had to create that, with templated skies and templated lands, and I told you later on, we made
Indeed.
a single animal there, is real. Is real. It's photoreal. It's nothing in that movie is a real story, from the of grass to the. So when you see that, and when you see that the audience and the young kids don't know that, because it's one thing to create Kung Fu Panda, which they know is animated, it's not real. The other is to have movies, like the Pirates of the Caribbean, where Johnny Depp is real, but the water is not, or something.
Water isn't.
But then you have a movie like the Lion King, where everything is totally realistic, but nothing is real.
Yeah.
So I would definitely put that. If you wanted to ask me, in a later moment, what's the best movie? Is the next one that we are making.
Outstanding. Any hints?
You'll have to call me back next year.
We certainly will look forward to doing that, Virendra. We certainly will. It has been delightful, Virendra. Thank you so much. We are truly privileged.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed having this conversation, and it will inspire many people to embrace, the digital media world, in which there is an unending scope and opportunity for everyone.
Thank you so much, Virendra. Ladies and gentlemen, that was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, in conversation with Biren Ghose, country manager for Technicolour, and a fascinating man. That's all from us in this segment. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a second.